district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it into us so that you may be recognized during the requests to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Mrs. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Hawley.
Yep.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mrs. Albers and Mrs. Douglas have given prior notification of their absence. Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mr. Barcenas.
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Goodman.
Here.
Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is to be approved as follows. Items number 3.1 through 3.9. This is the consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to, that's right. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as published.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as published.
Second by Carlos Barcenas. Discussion, seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Item number 4, request to address the board. There are none. We are none. Okay, wonderful. Information items. Item number 5.1, 2025 scholarship and receptions, and as well as the 2025 staff giving campaign. Ms. Carrie Hooker-Leap.
To go up. No. There it is. All right. Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you what we're doing over at the foundation in April. It's one of our busiest months. We'll start off with just a couple things that are kind of exciting. We have, our Teacher of the Year nominations are open. They started in the beginning of March. They are available until the end of April. If you don't know what our Teacher of the Year is, the teacher nominations is an opportunity for anyone in the public, students, to give a little shout out to your favorite teacher. Your favorite teacher, favorite staff member, your favorite admin, custodian, doesn't matter, as long as they're a GIPS employee. It's a great opportunity. So 1, 2, 3, you can go to that QR code right now if you wanted to. Vote for your favorite person, give them a little shout out, and then we take all those nominations, provide them to that person before the end of the year when they need it most. The teachers that are kind of a little maybe at the end, or the custodians, and they just need a little up. And so then we take those and at Welcome Back, we'll give out the Teacher of the Year, Admin of the Year, and so forth. So that's just a quick little shout out there. It is staff giving time. We put out our staff giving the 1st of April. We not only provide that to all 1,200 plus employees, we also invite the foundation board as well as the Board of Education to give to the foundation. Those funds then enable us to fill those voids, be sure that we have our programs. So you can fill out and everybody should have got their application or their announcement already. To give, you can give online. You can go to gipsfoundation.org and give right there. Staff always has a great time. Our staff for Nebraska sets the standard. We give 85%. We've never had under 85% participation. Our foundation board is always at 100% participation. We want to continue that. In fact, there's been years that we had 93% participation. So again, we are the standard that others look at. So if you have opportunity, you want to give to the foundation, please do. Professional development grants, these begin April 15th. We, this year, are giving 3 professional development grants out. So this is an opportunity for teachers or certified staff to actually look at extending their education. Each grant is a $1,500 scholarship as long as they're going to a Nebraska accredited school. The first one was our Dr. Eugene Miller grant, and that's been around for 8 years, I believe. And scholarships. This is my favorite program. So this is scholarship time. We started kicking off scholarship time December 1st. So it is a long process. We give the students about 73 days to fill out the scholarship application. This year we had 446 students fill out at least start the application. 138 of those were outside of GIPS. Now we do have several scholarships that are open to not only outside of GIPS, but actually to college students as well. Out of that 446, we had 188 successfully complete their scholarship application. Once it's completed, we have 93 independent reviewers that come out and give of their time and effort. Several of the BOE did that for us. An opportunity to read the scholarships, and then it's a blind process. So it's a difficult process to go through. I know reading through or speaking to the reviewers, this year was one of the best years for our applications. They were very, very good, very difficult to choose from. We had 79 grads that are gonna receive scholarships. That's 182, and we've had a record-breaking $693,823 that will be extended to our students. In fact, one of those students is in the room right now, Owen Williams, who's going to be receiving and signed for a $260,000 scholarship to Northwestern. That reception, if you want to come, I certainly invite you. April 23rd, that is over at Grand Island Senior High at the West Gymnasium. It's from 10:30 in the morning till noon. And that's an opportunity for our recipients to meet their donors, to hear about why they give, why the scholarships were set up. Then we also have a April 25th, that is our Martin reception. Those are only for Martin scholarship winners. Owen, again, being one of those. And that will be over at the Bill Marshall Conference Room from 1:30 to 3. So that is the full thing. Is there any questions, anything I can answer for you? Anything?
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. I was curious if you saw a decrease in the amount of applicants this year compared to other years. I know there's been a huge 180, 360 with FAFSA, and then having it be mandated at the state level. I guess if you could just speak to that. Thank you.
We did actually see a lower number of students actually fill out. We had several students that are not going on or taking a gap year, several students that are choosing to go into the trades. So it has lowered, but again, I think, when you look at the quality of students that we are providing out of GIPS and other schools, it's still, top of the line. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you again. Thank you for reviewing. If you did, I look forward to seeing anybody at a reception.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks.
Item number 5.2, FIT update. Dr. Summer Stevens and Mrs. Christine Ostermeyer.
Good evening. While Christine's getting set up here, I'll just give a quick introduction and then get out of her way. So this is Christine Ostermeyer. She took over this year as the FIT coordinator. We actually kind of changed the role a little bit, and Christine last year served as a social worker in one of our buildings, but she comes to us with a lot of experience in social work and working in this area. So what we're working on is trying to find new ways that we can expand opportunities, ensure that we're doing everything we can for all students that fall into this category. We also are expanding our work and trying to grow our understanding and support of students that are in foster care. So that's also part of her job duties. We also have Brian Whitecalf, who predominantly works with high school students and does provide a lot of great supports for our kids at the high school. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Good evening. So this evening, even though Dr. Stevens did mention that my role does cover some of our foster youth, I will be predominantly talking about our Families in Transition program, so our students that are served under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Student Service Act. So to get started, just knowing a little bit about the numbers are the McKinney-Vento Act, the impact of housing instability, and what Grand Island Public Schools is doing. So our numbers in Nebraska, and these are reflecting the 21-22 school years, nearly 1 in 10 students were experiencing unstable housing. Unaccompanied youth make up approximately 11% of the students identified underneath the McKinney-Vento Homeless Students Act. 10% of the state's population fall below the federal poverty level, and in Hall County, that is estimated at about 13%. 64% of students enrolled in Nebraska public schools are families that are doubled up in their housing. Approximately 1 in 4 homeless students are also enrolled in English learning services, and approximately 11% of families are living in hotels as a long-term solution to housing. So when we look closer to home, in Grand Island Public Schools, so far we have identified 348 unique students that have unstable housing. 81% of those students are doubled up with either family or friends. We've had 27 students reside in a shelter program, and 45 students do not live with a legal guardian. When we look at those numbers at each of our individual schools, we can see that they are across all of our buildings. I do want to note that these numbers might mean that students have came and gone. So that does not mean that currently, let's say Star, for example, has 19 students currently. That might mean that they've had 19 students that have came, but they might have a student that has transitioned and either moved to a different school or out of the district. So I want to make it clear how homelessness is defined for the school setting, because it is a little bit different than how homelessness is defined for, say, HUD purposes. So underneath the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, homelessness is defined as lacking a fixed, regular, or adequate housing. We look at that as things like needing to double up with friends or family due to lack of access to affordable housing. Maybe that's due to an eviction, or you do not currently have the means for rent on your own. This also might mean that your housing is not adequate. Maybe your housing is not stable due to potential infestation or things like that, that your housing would be considered substandard, or that your housing is irregular, that you are not staying in the same place on a nightly basis. This also is our unaccompanied youth. So our students that do not have access to a legal guardian. Now that does not mean that they do not have access to a caring adult. It just doesn't mean that they are in the care and custody of someone that has those legal paperwork. So a little bit about how our district identifies students and supports them. First is our district identification. All of our staff receive a basic overview of the McKinney-Vento Act and how to identify students, what they might be looking for, and what to do. We make sure that they know that there are social workers and counselors in each building that can help them and support them if they are questioning whether or not a student may need support. After that student's individual situation is looked at, social workers and counselors coordinate with myself And we gather more information to determine a family's eligibility. We then gather family input into their family situation, making sure that we are culturally responsive to each family's unique needs. We gather that information to determine what's in the educational best interest for the student. Then we determine what ongoing supports we may be able to offer the family. So that might mean some basic case management, some access to the community supports that we do have, and some of the supports that we have from within our district. Within our district, that also includes some access to transportation to school for some select students. So why do we do this? We know that stability for students impacts them as students now and in their future. And so we want to provide as much stability as we can. We know that when we have unstructured moves, that can cause unstructured moves within a school. So if we can create as much structure within the school building and support for those students, it can positively impact their futures. So it's a little bit of what we know. Unstructured school moves increased potential arrest rates by up to 15%. Studies show that frequent moves decrease the likeliness that you will graduate on time. Even the threat of eviction negatively impacts a student's attendance. Overcrowding in housing impacts students' health on a daily basis. And we know that unplanned moves increase the likelihood of depression symptoms in adulthood. So some of our program goals. We want to continue to educate all Grand Island Public School staff so that they have a basic understanding of the impact of housing instability and can offer support to all students. We want to continue to identify students so that we can support them in their school experience and prepare them to be college and career ready. We want to continue to work with our community to reduce the stigma around housing insecurity, mental health, and poverty. And we want to continue to grow the capacity to support our students by building relationships with nonprofits, businesses, and community organizations. Thank you. What questions do you guys have?
Mr. Sykes.
If there's any organizations that want to reach out to help and be a part of what you're doing, I'm assuming you're the point contact. You would want them to reach out directly to you?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And I will say, I had asked somebody very nicely to grab some demographic information because that was asked to me earlier. So to go back in time, 65% of the students in the FIT program also receive EL services. 8% of our students have IEPs. The wonderful person that gathered this data, I feel oddly proud of this. 58% of the students in the FIT program have 0 discipline referrals. So, I mean, way to go them. But, so I just think it's really important that we are doing our best to identify these students and provide them as many supports and services as possible. Are there any additional questions?
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm still thinking about my question, but one of them was, what's the free and reduced lunch percentage at GIPS? It's like 60-some%, is it? I don't know if it was on one of the slides. 74.
Thank you.
At last year's number, yeah.
How does that?
We don't collect it right now in
Yeah.
the same way as we did because we're CEP, so we don't
Right.
do traditional collection.
What does that mean?
Do you want me to say that again? So currently, all students receive free meals, so we do not,
We don't collect the traditional,
yeah.
the traditional applications, so our number may be a little bit skewed. The number 74 was with last year with those applications. I believe, though, when Chris moved forward in August with the CEP, and Virgil might have the exact number, but we were almost at 70% of our students had direct certification qualifications between SNAP benefits, which is food stamps, Medicaid, those, and foster care, and our FIT, and migrant. So 70, that was approximately the number that qualified that way without completing those free reduced lunch applications.
Is the district looking into like how to calculate a percentage into that, or like what other how does that compare to, I guess, a twofold
It's
question. How does
probably
it-
high compared to many school districts for across the board at that number, just for those directly certified students. This year we did provide, I'm gonna call it an alternate income form that we use internally for things like qualifying for support and help with instruments, things that would happen maybe potentially in show choir, areas where there's a fee collected for something, especially like co-curricular or extracurricular. So we do have a form that we use, and we didn't collect specifically because some people turn that in that also already qualified through a different benefit. But we're continuing at this point, as long as we're continuing with CEP, to do an alternate form. But we certainly could look at anyone who's not in the group of direct certification, how many additional students filled out the alternative income form, which is similar to the old school lunch application.
Okay, thank you.
So we can work on that for this next year.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be helpful just to tell us a better story of like what's the trend, but also demographics of like who's in the FIT program. Do you have any data of like comparative of like over the past couple of like 3 years? Just because like post COVID-19 really brought a lot of needs to our community, and then we have like a housing shortage, right? Do you have any data points that compares like over the years?
yeah, so far, our number of identified students is comparable to last year. I have not looked at the year previous, but so far, comparing this year and last year, we're at about the same place. We were having conversations and are continuing to have conversations about just the changes in the environment for our families, considering that a large number of the families that we serve are Hispanic and Latino families, and whether our numbers will be impacted by any sort of changes. So,
Okay.
are there any other questions?
Mr. Barsonis.
Thank you for the information. What is the biggest barrier the FIT program faces right now, you would say, this year?
Access to affordable housing. That would be the biggest, by far the biggest barrier. And access to affordable housing for the size of family. So a lot of families that do receive supportive services for housing, there are limitations on the number of people per bedroom, if they receive any sort of like Section 8 or any sort of other services like that. And so that's a big barrier if they are a larger family. So that really, I know that that's really the answer that you get to a lot of things, but that really truly is the biggest barrier. Yes.
Okay, see no other questions?
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 5.3, Grand Island Education Association Retirement and Years of Service Celebration. Mrs. Karma Lewandowski.
I'm here again. Good evening. My name is Karma Lewandowski, and I'm here on behalf of the Grand Island Education Association Communication and Publicity Committee. And no, I can't say that 5 times fast.
The Communication and Publicity Committee organizes the retirement and recognition for years of service celebration for the association members, and we have it in May. And I'm here to invite you to attend our celebration. The event is Wednesday, May 7th. It'll be at the Balls Reception Hall at 213 North Sycamore Street. We start with a social time at 4 o'clock with a light dinner and a program to start about 4:30. We have great food. Michelle and I are the entertainment, so great entertainment. And last year, I challenged you guys to come, and I was super excited because there was a table of, I think, 6 or 7 people that came. So this year, going along with our theme, rally, 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 hit a home run. I'd like to see everybody there. It makes the teachers feel good that you're there. So please consider coming. Thanks. Will you give one to Donna? And okay, one to Lisa, and I could also email it to them as well. So, thank you. Thank you. Oh, did anybody have any questions? Okay, perfect. Did you want one? Sure. Okay. Batter up. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I can't do it without it.
Item 5.4, K through 5 Math Curriculum Resource Pilot, Ms. Danielle Berman.
Hello, good evening. I feel like this time of year, every year, you just get to see me. We're going to talk about some math today. I have 2 people with me. I'll let them introduce themselves, but first I just want to make note, Mr. Fisher, I'm disappointed you didn't get the pink blazer memo, and we could have really rocked this joint tonight. So I'm Danielle Berman. I'm one of the LFRL curriculum coordinators, and we're here with a proposal for a math resource pilot at the elementary level, and I'll let these 2 lovely ladies introduce themselves.
I'm Caitlin Jensen. I'm the academic support coach at Howard Elementary.
And I'm Andrea Hermans. I'm a first grade teacher at Shoemaker.
And these 2 wonderful women have been a part of this process from the beginning. And so I invited them to kind of give their perspective on the different phases of the policy that we're going to talk through that really warrants the process that we went through. So we're here today because in 2019-2020, our last elementary math resource was adopted, and we all know what happened in 2020. And believe it or not, that was now going on almost 7 years ago. I don't know if you're like me and like COVID's just did something to the timeline in our brains, but somehow 25-26 next school year is going to be the last year that we have access, and we will be receiving student materials. Teachers will have access to the digital materials. So we have to go through this policy, which is 7320, regardless, because we're nearing the end of that current resource timeline. So district policy 7320 really warrants the steps that we as a district have to go through, especially in a large project when you're thinking about next year 13 elementaries, nearly 5,000 students are going to be impacted by this. And so there's a lot of due diligence that you have to go through to make sure we're making the right decision and we're investing appropriately to what our students and staff need. So that policy begins with a resource needs assessment, which Caitlin will talk through kind of the things we went through for that. Then that springboards an implementation plan based on what comes out of that first step. Then you establish a diverse committee to review resources and materials. Andrea will talk through kind of the different ways in which we involve stakeholders with that and what they determined. Then finally, we field test resources so that we really can ensure that our students and staff are having the experiences with materials that we need in order to get the student outcomes that we want, which is the proposal that we'll kind of end this presentation with. And then the last 3 parts of this policy what you'll hear from me next year, a year from now, when we come forward with an adoption. So Caitlin is going to talk about the resource needs assessment.
So for our resource needs assessment, we had 3 different unique stakeholder teams that met from November to January. And those 3 teams, we had the 26 elementary teachers from all buildings representing all grade levels, EL, special education, and our gifted and talented program. We had a team that included all of our academic support coaches and elementary principals. And when we met, we analyzed the district data that I will be presenting to you guys. We talked about strengths and weaknesses of our current resource, which is Origo, and we solicited feedback from the teachers in the buildings that were not part of our committee. Our two options that we had to choose from were stick with our original timeline, which is moving forward with resource exploration and then a pilot next year. Or the other option would be to potentially delay the timeline for 2 years and wait on that process. So all of the information that we were looking at was helping us to make that decision of whether we were going to move forward or wait for 2 years. On this first graphic, you can see this is our results compared to the state of Nebraska. The state of Nebraska is the blue column. Grand Island Public Schools is the red column. This is our data from the 18-19 school year with our previous resource to Origo. And you can see that the difference for Grand Island Public Schools compared to the state of Nebraska, in third grade it was 8%, fourth was 8%, and fifth was 9%. We were lower than the state. This next graphic shows our comparison with the state in this previous school year. And you can see that while for us, again, the red bars, we show growth in our areas, you can see that that gap between us and the state is growing. So we dropped its 17% gap for third grade, 11% gap for fourth, and 12% gap for fifth. So in every single one of those grade levels, our gap between the state is widening. The next graphic's gonna walk through, this is our map data, and we'll focus on kindergarten, first and second grade, so that's those first 3 rows. This is our fall data, and you can see those scores are highlighted in that red box. Then in the winter, our scores all decrease significantly. You can see that drop from fall to winter, and again, we're looking at those top 3 rows for kindergarten, first and second grade. And then while we do make gains in the spring, if you compare that first chart for fall to spring of 2024, we do not make gains back to where we were at the beginning of the year. So we have our scores, they drop. We do have increase, but we do not make it back, nor do we increase our proficiency level at the end of the year. Some more information that we looked at, you can see the top row of that chart is the state of Nebraska with the EL student population, free and reduced lunch, INSCAS math proficiency, and then that last column shows the resource that district uses for their math instruction. Then Grand Island is there more towards the middle, and you can see our EL population, we're at 24%. Our math proficiency was 48%, and then our resource that we currently have is Origo. The other 3 rows or bars to look at would be the 3 that are highlighted. Those are districts that have a similar number of EL students or higher that have higher percent proficient on INSCAS math. So that really helped us to look and see, well, so these districts have similar EL populations, they are performing better. What are the resources that they're using as just a place to get started for some potential resources to look at? Then we had our themes. This was based off of the feedback of our current resource, which is Origo. The things that were not working with Origo, the level of rigor, which is pushing students to that proficiency level and having the students be the ones doing the majority of the thinking or the work in the math classroom. Alignment to our state standards. Some of our standards, students were only completing tasks that were at the developing level versus being at the proficiency level. So that was one of the areas that we wanted to address potentially. Not enough opportunities for students to practice the different concepts and skills that were being taught to them. The number of strategies at times were overwhelming. Students could potentially learn 3 or 4 strategies for one concept, and that was difficult for students to be able to pick one of those strategies and then be able to consistently use that. The data in geometry areas within our mathematics, that was a weakness in Origo. There was not, the lessons that were in there, again, we're not pushing them to that proficiency level. And then as the data that I just showed you talked about it, our kids are not performing where we want them to be at. So our stakeholder team recommendations, overwhelmingly and unanimously, all 3 of our groups wanted to move forward with a pilot. So our teacher stakeholders group were 92% for, 8% against. The coaches group was unanimously in favor, and there were not concerns that were brought forward by the principals after reviewing all of the information.
So once the stakeholder teams recommended that we cannot afford to delay this pilot, we're ready. There was actually a lot of excitement brewing. I'll be honest, I thought when I presented the option of, hey, we don't have to do a pilot right now, let's wait 2 years. People were like, no, we're ready to pilot now. And I'm like, okay. So it's nice to have some excitement around that because it is a really involved process. But that kickstarts the next part of this policy, which is around developing an implementation plan. And this is really just a lot of work on the back end side that's going to encompass a lot of research, demos, samples from, you don't want to walk into a room with like 40 resources because you're like, where do I focus my attention, right? So we reached out to other districts in the state. We showed that EL comparison data. We knew some places maybe we needed to start to really hone in on some things. And in this process, we really narrowed down to around 6 resources that we really wanted to dig into further, that we felt met our needs, aligned with our vision of instruction. The other part of this phase is you're really creating a timeline for the work. The policy says that this process from beginning to end is going to take a year. With an elementary pilot and adoption of this scope and magnitude, you're talking closer to 18 months to 2 years to really do it from beginning to end. And then I develop a plan for selection of materials to pilot, which will involve a group of people that Andrea is going to talk about.
So we really wanted to make sure that we had a diverse committee that was able to come and review these resources with us. So we included 17 people. Is that all we had? Teacher reps from all grades. It felt like a lot in that room, sorry.
There's a lot of books.
There was a lot of books. Kindergarten through 5th, so we had teachers from every grade level there, kindergarten all the way through 1st grade. We included our specialists, included our English learner teachers, our gifted and talented, and our special education. We had academic support coaches, principals, and our curriculum coordinator. We met together to review and narrow down those 6 resources over the course of like 3 to 4 weeks. We were meeting once weekly. We really wanted to focus on what high quality instructional materials include, and our district guidance really helped us figure that out. So high quality instructional materials need to align with our state standards, obviously to that level of rigor that is defined by the standard and listed in some of our achievement level descriptors. It's aligned with the district vision of instruction, which are our math commitments, provides guidance to inform lesson planning and including appropriate research-based strategies and scaffolding for those teachers to use, and then reflect and respect all of our students' cultures, languages, and lived experiences that they bring into our classroom every single day. The things that we really kind of surround our values around are these math commitments that were created a few years ago, really making sure that students are able to use their vocabulary, make connections, be allowed to make mistakes, and view themselves as a mathematician. And these really build into the mathematical processes that are given to us from the state around those same things. We centered our rubrics and the things that we were looking at to make our decision around 3 things, which is the teacher, being able to improve teachers' instructional practices, students, engaging students in the learning process, and then also that content of being able to provide the academically challenging content. And if we can include all 3 of those things, you have that improved student achievement, which is ultimately what we're looking to do. So in other words, the daily student and teacher experience with content is what we needed to consider first. We were trying to ignore all of the flashy parts of the curriculums, the things that they were trying to buy us out with, and really focus on the standards and making sure that it was going to do what we wanted it to do. So we really looked at bridges into math, which we got rid of fairly quickly. We kind of decided that that's not the direction we wanted to go. And we listened to demos from iReady, Amplify, which is Desmos Math from based off of Illustrative, Great Minds, which is Eureka Squared. We say here that a 6 was considered, which was math expressions, but when you look at those updates, none had happened since 2017. And with this going to last the next 7 years for us, that was a really long time to go without updates in a world like education. The 2 that we came down to were Amplify Desmos Math and Great Minds for Eureka Squared. So for Amplify Desmos Math, those strengths that we really liked through them was that it was based on illustrative mathematics, which we know and we trust. Embedded opportunities to respond in student discourse routines. A lot of our schools are focusing on those opportunities to respond to engage kids in the learning, and with those already built in, teachers don't have to build those in themselves. And it was really getting the kids discussing and talking about math. Lessons are task-based and student-driven, so kind of a 180 flip from what you would typically see of a teacher just teaching content while the students listen. The usability of materials and the clarity of mathematics progressions for teachers, we could easily see how one thing was building into another and progressing over time. And it was a focus on math identity and building that math community, which is exactly what our commitments are trying to do anyways. Eureka Squared was very similar to Amplified Desmos, but it had more of a development on the math as the focus and understanding that why. So teachers and students were understanding why the math was happening, and they were developing those as that number one priority. It has a variety, again, of opportunities to respond embedded in structures for that student discourse in every lesson. The lessons in Eureka Squared follow a very explicit routine that's easy to follow for teachers and students, and they have a really good balance between explicit instruction, but also being able to explore, students being able to explore different opportunities. And it has embedded support for teachers to understand the mathematics and ways to support students. Every lesson has ideas for scaffolding or differentiation based off of what students are understanding or not understanding.
So that committee started meeting towards the end of January after the initial stakeholder teams really recommended that we needed to move forward. They met, I just want to give a shout out to that team. Those teachers were meeting after school, after teaching all day long. They were meeting multiple times in February when they were given extended plan time to do report cards or after parent-teacher conferences, and they would come meet with me for several hours at a time and sit through demos and go through the pile of books that must have looked like extra human bodies or something. So they met close to 7-8 times for multiple hours over the course of 2 months to really and it is exhausting work when you're digging into that. So shout out to that group for really, really digging in, and ultimately they recommended those 2 resources. The other part of this policy or this step in the policy is work that I do with administrators, really determining how we're going to go about field testing the resources that this committee then recommended. And so the principals and I met, and the principals suggested building wide pilots. Prior to 2020, the last time we really had a full-scale pilot like this, it was kind of sporadic PLCs across the district that were asked to be a part of that. Building principals felt that we could provide more intentional support and collaboration for teachers if we identified entire buildings to engage in that pilot process. I thought that was a fantastic idea. And the surprise number 2 of this process was that 7 buildings reached out wanting to pilot materials. So the principals had the charge of going back to their buildings, talking with all their staff, talking with PLC, talk to their building leadership teams about, is this something that we want to take on for next year? And I had a problem I didn't think I was going to have. I had 7 buildings wanting to pilot those materials. Ultimately, we narrowed it down to 4, really just based on school improvement plans, some logistics, demographics, things like that. Because I know I wanted to try to have a title and a non-title building piloting both of those 2 resources. So next school year, Lincoln Elementary and Newell Elementary will be piloting Eureka Squared. In addition to our Skills Academy, which is housed at Lincoln, Star and Stolly Park Elementary, in addition to our newcomer program that is housed at Stolly Park, will be piloting Amplified Desmos Math. So that brings us to kind of the why we're here today. In order for us to field test those materials, obviously we have to have funds in order to do that. The great thing about this is the original timeline that really started from 2019, 2020. So we've had L4L funds set aside to do this work. And we just kind of had it earmarked in anticipation of if that initial committee had recommended we move forward. So it's been there for several years waiting for this moment. But it is a large pilot. When you think about a large district like Grand Island, the number of students who are going to be involved in this project is larger than most districts in the state of Nebraska. We're going to have 1,400 students. We'll have 66 teachers. And so the funding as part of this proposal is to ensure that all of those individuals who are a part of that, especially the teachers, have access to the manipulative kits and different things like that to make their life as easy as possible, because piloting work is physically and emotionally investing, but it's also incredibly rewarding because you learn a lot about the teaching and learning of mathematics or whatever content area that you're piloting. So the really cool thing about this is that both programs also have additional like diagnostic assessments that and mini lessons and interventions that we can use. And our schedule at the elementary level, we have a win time for math and a win time for reading. That's an additional 25 minutes for teachers to respond to student needs. And so both of these products and the funding our decisions will obviously be made on what's happening within core, but there are also additional features with those programs to create one, tier 2, tier 3 level of support that our teachers will be able to kind of play around with throughout the year that they're very excited about. We'll also obviously have professional development. The Amplify we have a prior history with. Eureka Squared, there's a lot of neighboring districts that use it. Kearney Northwest uses it, but as you saw from our EL comparison data, Crete uses it, and they have a higher EL percentage than us and have a higher NSCAS percent proficiency than us. So all of those districts would tell you the number one thing you have to invest in is professional learning. And the great thing about those two companies is they've actually comped most of the professional learning because they want to ensure that this pilot is successful for us. Our prior relationship with Amplify, and if we adopt Eureka Squared, we would be the largest district in the state doing it. So they're willing to kind of throw in some extra professional learning that we are not having to pay for, which is fantastic. We can use our size to our advantage sometimes. So the proposal is to approve up to $95,000 in LFREL funds to support this year-long pilot in all 4 buildings. $43,000 of that will go to Star and Stolly Park for all the materials that they will need. Around $37,000 plus a little bit extra for Skills Academy, which we decided this week is also going to be a part of the project. We'll go to Lincoln and Newell Elementary, and then I did set aside, as in the proposals, like just additional funding to respond to the needs of teachers. Do they need some additional professional learning? Are they wanting to learn more about a certain thing within the resource? That allows me to have some funds available to bring people in to support teachers with the things that they've identified. It'll also enroll. We're trying to only purchase exactly what's needed, so any sort of big enrollment changes will also do that. So this just gives me some cushion to be able to make sure that we always have the materials that we need. So the next step of this, obviously, is next year is going to be a really busy year around here, and we're going to have all those teachers and buildings engaged in that process. The committee that Andrea spoke about, in addition to some representatives from each of the pilot buildings, will be overseeing this process. So they will continue to meet. They'll look at data. We are going to be getting feedback constantly from teachers in the classrooms using these materials. And so it's going to be a very involved process. And then you'll see me back in a year with the recommendations from that committee in terms of which of those two we want to adopt moving forward. This is info in action tonight, just as an FYI, because teachers want the materials as soon as possible, and Eureka Squared in particular has told me that if we order soon, we can get the materials here for teachers before summer break. So if teachers wanted to take their teacher manuals with them over summer, not that they have to, but again, another surprise, they're wanting things now. So I want to be able to honor that, and so we're asking for info and action tonight so we can get those things ordered, and I'm busy scrambling to do that tomorrow. So any questions about the process or anything related to math? Because I got 2 ladies here that really love to talk about math. They didn't wear their sparkly boots, though. I'm a little...
Oh, but we match our shoes, though. Look at that.
Mr. Hawley.
Can you describe the process, Dr. Berman, of evaluating this a little bit further? So like you said, I mean, we're going to have 6 grades, 4 schools, 2 programs. There's a lot of pieces in this puzzle, and we're going to have a lot of feedback from instructors. Does it come down to looking at progression of students from last year where they were to this year where they are in the new program? Is it based on grade? I mean, there's got to be a lot of pieces. What data are you evaluating to see which program is better?
That is an excellent question. And the first thing you want to do is not evaluate one data set. Like, it has to be multi-compassing, triangulated, including both quantitative, in my opinion, and qualitative data. So our amazing secretary and our LFRL team actually started working on this today. We'll look at their standards benchmark data from this year to next year for each building. So we'll look at proficiency of standards on our district benchmarks. We'll look at map growth, some of the data that Caitlin shared to see, we're seeing this trend of a dip from fall to winter. Are we still seeing that? Or did the resources within those classrooms, did that help kind of minimize that more? The biggest thing that I've done in the past, like when I've talked to you about high school resource adoptions, is I'm gonna ask teachers to fill out a very simple form, like 3 questions every 2 weeks, to really get their experiences of what's working right now and what's not working right now, and what are you seeing from your kids. And so it's really honestly kind of nerdy and cool when you get done with it, because you have this story of what played out in the moment it's playing out, instead of asking people at the end of the experience, right? Like, so what happened and how did it go? It's like you have this like almost like an in the moment record of what the teacher was experiencing. There'll obviously be a lot of observations and being in classrooms, because I think the perspective we miss a lot is the student. Because if we're doing this for kids, then we need to make sure that our kids are interacting with the materials in the way that we want them to. And so there's a lot of different components, and that's why it takes a committee too to kind of really oversee that process and make sure we're considering it's not just outcome data, it's teacher experience, more qualitative data, it's different quantitative data components, because you want to make sure that is the resources we're using, is that really doing what we want it to do? And it's why you really field test, and that part of the policy is there, because looking at a stack of books in a room doesn't matter how many days you do it for, nothing tells you more than the lived experience of a teacher using it with students in a classroom.
Thank you.
Owen.
Hey, so obviously you guys haven't done your pilot yet, and hopefully that'll get approved tonight. But I was just wondering, you guys started off your meeting talking about needing more simplicity, and kind of something that I've really noticed in my family is that math, more than probably any other subject, is really like a family subject in elementary school, where teachers kind of have to send home homework. And for me, that was fine. I was before this past system, but my sister, who's just 6 years younger than me, was under this new system when she was in elementary school. And I remember, it was a challenge for my parents, and even for me, to even help her with her homework, because it was just so different from anything we learned when I'm only 6 years older than her, and it's just so different. And so will parent and family support kind of be taken into that? Because I really feel like when you send kids home with this stuff, and it's just like, wow, my parents can't even figure it out, how am I supposed to do it, right? Hopefully, I'm just hoping that somewhere that gets into that pilot project of how is this able to involve the whole family, and whether that's going back to simpler methods that parents better understand, or sending home extra packets for them where they can hopefully learn the new methods, but something like that. So.
The nice thing about the 2 resources that we're looking at that's missing in our current resource is family materials. So there are
family letters and things that you can send home every month or in every subunit that really shows the strategies that kids are learning. I've talked to this group, I could nerd out for the next 2 hours if you really want to. But the thing that we have to be careful about in mathematics is myself, most of the parents in the room, we learned via algorithms. And so you give me a bunch of multiplication. This is a true story, and this kind of illuminates this. So I talked to my son one day when he was in kindergarten, and he was looking at a cereal box, and he looked at the number of calories on the cereal box, and he noticed that there were 7 servings in it, and he goes, well, Mom, how many calories are in this box? And I'm thinking, you're a kindergartner, why are you worrying about calories? But in true educator form, I go, well, what do you think?
how would you figure out how many calories are in that box? And he does it and he gives me the answer and it was right. And he's like, well, how did you do it? And I was thinking the multiplication algorithm in my head. It was really embarrassing. Like I'm thinking 140 times 7, 0 times 7 carried the things over, and that's what I'm doing, right? And instead he tells me, well, there's 7 groups. I could think of it as 7 groups of 100. That would be 700. And then I have the 40 left over, and there's 7 groups of 40. That's 280. So then I add the 700 and the 280 together, and I get 980. And then I was really embarrassed because I was thinking the standard algorithm in my head. So what we're trying to get kids to do is, yes, those algorithms will be there, but that's not actually mathematical reasoning. And we want kids to make sense of problems and problem solve and become reasoners, because I don't want to continue to do this algorithm in my head and be really, really embarrassed when my kids tell me these brilliant ideas and I'm like, I really wish I thought about that. I'm not going to share my ideas anymore. So there are family letters in there, which is really, really fantastic. That's something, and they come in Spanish, which is also great. Amplified Desmos Math is new, so some of those Spanish translations they're continuing to work on, but that is an important component as we help people realize that the standards they are actually the same as what we had as our own learners of mathematics, but we're really trying to push the developing of reasoning skills that can be applied. And so we're not just, we have calculators that can do the algorithm for us, and so we want problem solvers and critical thinkers, and those are the things we're trying to develop.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you all have put into this. I think it's the textbooks and all of that sound intimidating, but
It's fun, I promise.
as long as you enjoy it, you know. I had a quick question about some of the data points, and I know during our L4L committee meeting we discussed how do we know when we know this is good, right? Is there a certain timeline, or I was looking at the policy right now, but is there a certain timeline that the district looks at, because we saw some of the data points of the school year of 2018 to 19, and then now this previous one of in 23 and 24, and just how those gaps were just increasing compared to the state in GIPS. Is there ever a time when it's we got to find something more soon? I'm assuming that looking at that gap is what encouraged everyone to be yeah, we should probably not wait. Is there, I guess I'm just asking, is there a unique scenario where you're ever we should look at this, once this gets
Sooner than
implemented?
7
Yeah,
years? Is that what you're
sooner
talking
than 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So the important part of this is it has been 7 years. So regardless, if we hadn't made the decision to pilot, I would have been coming you for money to purchase additional Origo materials. To answer your question, we have actually done that before. In 2016, 2017, we adopted Big Ideas at the middle school level and utilized that for a couple years, and it was not doing at all what we needed it to do. And we were able to secure some special funding, through Gear Up and some different sources, so it wasn't all coming out of the general fund, to engage in a pilot at the middle school level 3 years after that. And that was really teacher driven, where the teachers were saying, this is not at all doing what we need it to do, and they were having to work really, really hard to plan all these lessons to meet the needs of their kids and their standards. So we have done that before, based on student and teacher experiences. That's what it's all about. Obviously, you want to not do that, but we're pretty positive. We feel really great about these 2 resources and the excitement that's around it. When people didn't want to delay and 7 buildings wanted to do it, and people want their materials right now, and I'm like, whoa, just finish out the school year, it's okay. I got an email or a text message from Whitney Flower. She's got teachers using the demo login to get in and use and pull stuff already, and I'm like, okay, probably shouldn't tell the publisher that, but but people are really excited, and It aligns really nicely with our vision. I think at the committee meeting, somebody asked, like, how do we know, what makes this different than like when we adopted Origo in 2019, 2020? And the last several years, we've been talking a lot about math instruction and just instruction in general. Andrea mentioned opportunities to respond, discourse, that's all language that our teachers are using, our buildings are using. And so we've been digging into this, getting ready for this moment for the last 3 years or so. And I think that's why people are excited, because teachers are working really hard to do those things because their current resource doesn't do it. And our district has identified it as a priority and a need. These two resources have all those things we've been talking about already embedded within. So it's less work for everybody else.
Okay, is there any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to item 5.5, policy. Mr. Matt Fisher.
Dr. Berman, I'm really sad because not only did I have the pink blazer, I also had the sparkly boots at home. If I'd have just got the memo.
I can find your size, maybe.
Okay, policy-wise, we're actually kind of shifting gears a little bit. We've been doing business policies for the last few months, and now we are moving into some personnel policies. So the first one we're going to look at here tonight is 6210, which deals with staff ethics. And as we look through this policy, there are several different places where the policy committee has recommended changes. We do have some of the thes in the Grand Island Public Schools that we've been eliminating in other policies. Then when we get down here to this list of standards that we would include in this ethics expectations, we've changed the wording in some of these. I don't know that we've really changed the standards that much, but the wording was changed. It was structured so that it's uniform as far as starting each of the items listed there with the same kind of literary format, maintaining professional relationships, utilizing current information, fostering cooperative relationships, placing the welfare of students. Number 5 there, we actually are looking to eliminate that one altogether. And then moving on down to 6 would be refraining from using school contacts, directing all communication to appropriate school administrators or supervisors, using and protecting all school properties, equipment, and materials. And then there's that additional expectation for certified staff that they have to conform to the ethics of teaching profession adopted by the State Board of Education. So that is basically the changes that were made in the policy itself. Questions about anything on that part? Down below that, there is also a whole listing of very specific things that I think would be viewed more as guidelines for implementing the policy rather than the policy itself. And as we have done in a number of places, I think the right thing to do is to pull those things out of policy and let those be operational procedures rather than policies. Questions around that?
See none.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one then. Staff professional appearance. And I don't know why, but when I tried these out earlier, they moved awfully slow. But they will come up eventually. Okay, staff professional appearance, not a lot of changes here. One of those thes in there. And then there is that statement, Grand Island Public School employees shall dress in attire appropriate for their position. Clothing should be neat, clean, and rather than in good taste, we just thought that maybe appropriate was a better term to be used there. So, neat, clean, and appropriate. Again, there also was a third time which we felt was kind of redundant, where really the same thing was getting said again, so we felt like that the last sentence there could be struck, and so that final sentence there would be struck. Again, this is the policy part. Down below, there are a whole set of prescriptive guidelines that would go along with this, and again, I think that right now our practice really is more based on buildings and the leadership of the buildings kind of setting the standards within their buildings. And so I think those prescriptive guidelines, again, would go back more to the procedures that each building would put in place, as well as the procedures that we would outline in our staff handbook. Questions about that one? Okay. All right, then we're going to move on to the use of tobacco and vapor products. It did just used to say tobacco, but again, in this day and age with the prevalence of vaping, we felt like that really the guidelines would better read the use of tobacco and vapor products by staff, visitors, and volunteers. And so, again, most of the changes that are in here really deal with making that use of vape products listed right alongside the tobacco products. So as you look through there, you'll see that in most cases, the changes that have been made really deal with adding and vapor products, or the next one, the use of these products, meaning both tobacco and vapor products. And then further down there, again, it's a matter of changing to tobacco and vapor products, and then talking about these. And then down at the bottom there, that last thing is non-district personnel and visitors will be requested. We feel like really the proper terminology there is required. We are going to require that of our non-district personnel when we are a smoke-free, tobacco-free, vape-free district. So really it's a requirement, it's not a request. Again, a whole list of prescriptive guidelines that then would go along with that once more, because these are more procedures than they are policies, I think the proper way to structure this would be to move the procedures outside of the policy and have them used where we would list other procedures. Questions on that one? Okay. Staff participation in political activities. This one did not require a whole lot of changes at all. A couple thes we had to get rid of. And then the terminology kind of in the middle of that second paragraph. Activities that are prohibited include, again, just a change in wording, really. No change in really what was listed there at all. It was just a matter of how that was worded. And then again, when you get to the end of that statement, then we eliminated the are specifically prohibited, because that was covered in the way the terminology was changed. So questions around that one? Really no change in intent at all on that. And there was no prescriptive part of this, so that is all that we would be looking at changing there. Questions? Okay. All right, then we go to internet safety. We did have Corey Gearhart do a review of this. He's kind of obviously our district expert in this area. So he did a review and recommended a number of different changes here. Again, just starting there in the title for this, it used to say internet safety for students, and then in parentheses it said staff. Well, the reality is this is the policy that we use for internet safety for students and staff. We might as well just go ahead and list staff just like we would the students. And then as you look down through there, block and filter was changed to just filter, because that is in reality what we're doing is we're filtering. We're not necessarily blocking. I mean, by filtering, we are in effect blocking. And then that list of different bullet points there were several of those that, you know, basically the bullet points that were added down at the bottom replaced the bullet points that were listed up above. And again, that was done in, at the recommendation of Mr. Gearhart. And that was pretty much it, other than the referencing policies. Again, they have changed a little bit since this policy was last reviewed. Questions around that one? Alrighty, that is all we have for this month.
Okay, on to action item 6.1, K through 5 Math Curriculum Resource Pilot. Dr. Berman.
Are there any additional questions?
Mr. Barsonas.
I've made a recommendation to approve the funds to purchase the resource pilot materials as presented.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 6.2, Facility Finance Program. Mr. Fisher.
We got to get some more action items in these meetings, so give it a longer break. Okay, Facility Finance Program. Again, we're back to business policies that we've been covering for the last few months. This is the last of those that need to be updated, so we would be looking to act on these tonight. As you look at the Facilities Finance Program, again, really not a lot of change in terms of the intent here. You look at that first red area, we're talking about a building fund levy not to exceed the maximum levy allowed, rather than listing the specific 14 cents. 14 cents is what is allowed, but the legislature, you know, could change that at some point in time, and by just saying the maximum that is allowed, we would be covered by whatever change would be made. We wouldn't have to go back and update policy. And really the same thing exists in paragraph 2 there, where it talks about the Board of Education may submit as allowed by law or at any regular school election. Again, that was wording that was put in there with the idea that at some point in time the legislature could disallow special elections, which was a legislative piece that was in front of the legislators this year. So again, by the way it is worded now, there wouldn't be a need to come back and revise policy. And then finally, that last sentence is in there, available funds as approved by the board and allowed by statute, rather than listing the specific funds that was the way it was before. So again, just makes it a little more broad and doesn't disallow something that would be allowed by statute. And so I think that's always a good policy to not rope yourself into a corner. Questions on that?
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 4530, Facility Finance Program as presented.
Second by Mr. Barsonas. Discussion. Seeing none, you may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, 4552, selection of an architect. very simple here. We have one change where we are eliminating one the.
Make a motion to approve policy 4552, selection of architect as presented.
Second by Mr. Holly. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4553, contractors fair employment clause. There are no changes here, so this simply needs to be approved as reviewed.
I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve policy 4553, contractors fair employment clause as presented.
Second by Ms. Wilson. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, 4561, procedures for acquisition of school sites. Again, no change other than elimination of one the.
No questions, would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve policy 4561, procedures for acquisition of school sites as presented.
Second by Mr. Holly. Discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4610, school properties disposal. Most of what's in here, again, is just wording change. There are a the at the beginning that gets eliminated there, and then so that there is consistency throughout the policy, where it is said Board of Education in some places and just board in others. We're eliminating the Board of Education, and throughout the policy, other than the first reference, it would be just referred to as the board rather than Board of Education. Otherwise, no real changes.
Entertain a motion. Mr. Parsons?
Make a motion to approve policy 4610, school properties disposal as presented.
Second by Ms. Wilson. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 4620, requests, donations, and gifts. Just an elimination of a couple thes.
Make a motion to approve policy 4620, request donations and gifts as presented.
Second by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Discussion. Seeing none, proceed to vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the last one that we have here, 4630, Grand Island Public Schools Foundation. We start out with eliminating a the, and then later on in this policy, it talked about the Articles of Incorporation of Grand Island Education Fund in March of 1990. We felt like it probably would be appropriate to add in a statement that in 2015, the name was changed to the Grand Island Public Schools Foundation. And then again, the elimination of a couple thes.
Make a,
Mr. Parsons?
make a motion to approve policy 4630, Grand Island Public Schools Foundation as presented.
Second by Mr. Holly. Discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Item number 7.1, Student Representative Report. Owen, the floor is yours.
Well, just now my computer signed me out, so some technical difficulties, but we'll see if it works, so. Maybe. Oh, here we go. Okay, hopefully it works. All right, start off with activities. So, as I brought up last time, the Islander powerlifting team went to nationals in Wisconsin. They sent 10 lifters, and Chris Cruz, McKenna Masnick, and Hunter Christensen all earned third place in their weight classes, and then Eric Guerrero earned fourth, and Giselle Laura took home fifth. The baseball team's off to a good start at 3-2, with two of those losses both being narrow ones to teams ranked in the top three. So really close games. And seniors Broxton Barrientos and Sam Dinkelman also earned preseason All-State honors, and they're living up to it thus far. The girls soccer team has already earned more wins than last season, and with three close one-goal losses, they're looking to make a second-half push and a strong run in districts. The boys soccer team has shown well this far with a record of 5-3. The Hooligans are sponsoring a tailgate at their game tomorrow night with burgers, and then on Saturday they take on Kearney. Today the track team is hosting their Islander Invite, where the parking lot is just absolutely packed, of course. And both the boys and girls teams have some key returners, so they're expecting both individual medalists and some team awards throughout the season. And then the unified track team is starting competition, and Gish always has great participation in that. And we have tons of helpers and coaches helping out with that, and my computer signed me out again. And yeah, so they're doing great thus far. Then around GIPS, the Aspire Awards were yesterday, and junior Askham Dodman won the Aspire Student Scholarship, which is a $2,500 scholarship, so we're really proud of her. And then Howard Elementary preschool teacher Amber O'Hara earned the Excellence in Education Award, and Kelly Mayhew won the Young Professional of the Year Award. Dr. Megan Stone and Claire Gardner were finalists in the Excellence in Education and Inspire Student Scholarship Awards, respectively. Earlier this month, 50 Gish seniors were recognized for earning magna cum laude, which was a 3.75 GPA or higher, or summa cum laude, which was 4.0 or higher. And head strength coach Pat Doyle earned the State Coach of the Year Award from the National High School Strength Coaches Association. And Todd Goshorn, who's our head athletic trainer, earned the Outstanding Service Award from the Nebraska State Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Prom is taking place this Saturday on the 12th at Riverside Golf Club. So me and my fellow class officers have been planning that, and we've been working with Mrs. Noose and Mr. Hubbard and Roses for You to get that and make a special night for all the Gish seniors and their guests. And then National Honor Society yesterday worked with the Red Cross to host their second blood drive for the school year, and they had over 140 people sign up to donate blood, so it was really a great event. And then lastly is my staff shout out. So my staff shout out for the month of April is someone in the room with us, Mr. Mitch Roush. I think Mitch is an amazing asset. Yeah. I think he's an amazing asset for our students, our districts, and really just our whole community. And it's him and our team, his team, that enable GIPS to show the experiences and successes of students and staff. Mitch and his team run the GIPS Instagram and Facebook pages, work with a group of students on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, and to make student-led media and create billboards and really do so much more. And I think he's doing a great job at making the GIPS image student-centered and inviting students to share their stories and experiences. The end result of this is post after post highlighting the experiences of students that they see as meaningful, and it leads to the community that is more aware and supportive of the steps that GIPS is taking to support their students. And that concludes my report, if there's any questions.
Congrats, Mitch. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Owen. Really appreciate it.
We took a picture of him in that moment.
Thank you, Owen, appreciate it. Item number 7.2.
Can I tag on something?
Sure, Mr. Hawley.
Just going back to your comments about prom, I believe that they're still looking for post-prom volunteers, so if any of you are not busy between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. on Saturday night, going into Sunday morning, you can come join me and other senior parents, volunteer your time to put on a fantastic post-prom event. It takes a lot of people to put on an event for our seniors, so if anybody has some time and would like to volunteer, we will most certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. My dad and the Waynes are heading that off, and yeah, he's looking vigorously for parents or
So-
teachers, maybe staff members of the month. or
Administrators,
whatever.
it really doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We'll take anybody.
Board members. He's desperate, so.
So now you know who to
help him
contact.
out. Yeah.
Okay, item 7.2, Superintendent Report.
Well, Owen covered most of my report already, so I did want to mention the Inspire, both award winners and nominees, and Owen did a great job of recognizing them. I think it's always great when we have, people from the district, both employees and students that get that recognition. So certainly, congratulations to those folks. Did want to mention that the Skills USA contest is going on here in Grand Island. Tomorrow is kind of the big day for that. If you haven't ever been out to Fauner Park for Skills USA, I would really encourage you to, even if it's a matter of getting out there for 30 minutes and just walking through and seeing all of the different contests. It's really pretty amazing. And not just seeing the Grand Island students, but seeing students from all over the state, and the skill level that they demonstrate in those contests is really pretty phenomenal. So I would highly encourage anyone that has a chance to go and spend 3 hours or 30 minutes. I think you really could spend the whole day out there watching those different contests going on. And it's really, it's everything from, mechanics to block laying to, they have a firefighter training contest that goes on, baking, all kinds of, really just pretty amazing contests taking place throughout the day. So again, that's one of those neat things that we get to host in Grand Island. So it is right in our backyard, so take advantage of it. Wanted to mention that we did have our key communicators group meet on Tuesday, and had a really good meeting. Thanks to our, outstanding staff member, Mitch Roush. We had a really good discussion around, an idea that he's been working up. As he would say, it's a half-baked idea, but we're getting it a little further baked as we move along. As far as really just another way to really involve our community and help them understand what is going on at Grand Island Public Schools. So again, that was a really good meeting. One of the things that, along with the spring activities that Owen had mentioned, it's also, spring is really a big time in the arts as well. Had the chance to go to Ramona Quimby production here a few weeks ago. Again, it's always really neat to see kids step out of what's usually their comfort level. You can tell the ones that are really comfortable being on stage, but then you also get to see those that are not that comfortable and see the work that they do. And the other thing I think that we've got coming up, as I look at my calendar and look at the next few weeks, there's a concert going on somewhere just about every night. I think our big orchestra and band concerts, I think, are both next week, and then, looking ahead, there's middle school concerts, elementary concerts. So, if you're sitting around at home, some night and you don't know what to do, there's probably a concert going on if you want to take that in. Between the foundation and the presentation from GIEA, about these next few things, but just to reiterate, those scholarship receptions. The one that's at the high school on the 23rd, 10 o'clock in the morning. If you can make it, it's a really neat time to have those kids have that chance to sit down with the individual or group that has sponsored the scholarship that they've received, and have those kids have that chance to sit down with them and thank them. So, again, it's one of those kind of neat things that we do that, gives you an opportunity to see how our kids interact with our public. And then the Martin Scholarship presentation, again, on that Friday, the 25th, is another neat place there. One of the other things, and then, of course, the retirement reception. We did have really good turnout last year of board members, and I think that the teachers really do appreciate that. And so would encourage any of you that are available on the 7th to take that in. Also on May 12th is the reception that actually the district does for all of our retirees, not just teachers, but anyone that we know that is leaving the district as a retiree, we recognize those people on May 12th. So again, that's just thinking ahead of some things that are coming our way. We'll remind you again when we have the board meeting in May of at least that May 12th one, because it comes after. I think everything else is before. One other event that's coming up here that again is one of those neat opportunities to see kids in action is the UNL Scholars Recognition Open House is going to be on the 23rd. Also, it's at 6:30 in the evening. Great opportunity to see those kids that are in the UNL Scholars Program. They present their capstone projects at that time. You get a chance to walk through and have the kids explain what they've studied and why they were interested in that. And then there's a nice presentation ceremony that's wraps that evening up. So again, just another thing that's on the calendar that you might want to think about taking in. The last thing I wanted to mention is on the 26th. So we got the 23rd, the 25th, the 26th. The afternoon of Saturday, April 26th from 2 to 4, Seedling Mile is going to be hosting an open house for people to have an opportunity to come in and, tour the building. And, as we get ready to, plan for not operating that building next year, they wanted to do something to give people the opportunity to experience the building and to talk about, the neat things that have happened in that building over the years. So, again, another one of those things that certainly any board member or anyone from the public that would be interested in attending, we would encourage them to do so. That is all I had to report.
Thank you. Notification of upcoming board meetings. Our regular Board of Education meeting will be held Thursday, May